Hey YouTube, thanks for tuning in. Today's video is going to be about pinning for the most part of metal models. The reason I'm doing this is because I was at a local gaming shop and there's a kid there complaining about how his minis were falling apart. And I said, well, explained to him what I did, and said, you know what, I'll make a video and I'll post it on my YouTube channel, and then you can see demonstrations. So this is for everyone. Of course, he was using GW super glue. I mean, it's super glue. It's just not super glue. Just isn't that great. I got this with some initial purchase, and then I use it for other stuff than minis. Super glue has a lot. It's really hard to pull apart, but you can. This way, if you bend, it snaps. It's very, because super glue dries really brittle, really hard but brittle, so it snaps pretty easy. Anyways, but the first thing I'm going to do is actually show. Well, my pet peeve is when bolters don't get drilled out. I'm going to show you how to do this first. A lot of people, well, I don't have a pin vise. Well, you don't need one. If you got 2 fingers and a drill bit, that's pretty much all you need, plus your modeling knife. What I do to start is I make a little point in the bolter at the tip. Take my drill bit, and that's about a 3/64 of an inch. Put that on the point, rest it on the palm, and just use my fingers to turn it. You can always put something on your palm, because I have had the drill bit go into my skin and it hurts. So I mean really all you have to do is take the drill bit with your fingers and turn it back and forth, and within a couple turns you have your bolter drilled out. And you want to use a fairly small bit. That's all that you really have. And as you can see, the focus isn't that great. You can see that I've drilled out. And also, while you're at it, bore out the side of the bolters for the, I don't know what the technical term on the gun is, where you have the hole in the side. So there you have it. I've just drilled it out without a pin vise, because I frankly don't see the need in spending $20 on a pin vise, because most, and some of them don't even hold a bit that small. And there you have it, a drilled out bit. Anyways, back to what this video is about, is pinning metal minis. This chaplin and the arm, made out of metal, need to be glued together, essentially like that. First you got to figure out where you're going to drill your hole. There's a little nub on the chaplin's arm, and I've already drilled this out just to make it easy, but for this video. But you have to figure out where you're going to drill the hole and what line. What I usually do it by eye, but what you can do is figure out where that hole is. Make a little mark with a pencil, because graphite will come off easy. Put your arm in place, how you want it to sit, and then put another mark there. Now this I don't suggest using your fingers to do, because it'll take forever. This, my friends, I use 18 volts of power, my cordless drill. Of course, it's also set on low. This drill bit is a 1/16 of an inch, too small to fit in the chuck of the drill, so I've put some tape around the end so it sits in there. Locked it into place. I set the drill in place and just went very slowly. I mean, not even 10 RPM. Just put some pressure and drilled in. And then I did the same for the arm, making note of where my mark was and following that line. Next thing you're going to need is some copper wire. It's my material of choice for pinning. This is a piece of stove wire. You can go to any hardware store and pick up a foot of it for a couple dollars. This was stove wire, so that it actually came. It was this, and there's lots of strands, and I think the strands are 16 gauge. So you can just buy some 16 gauge and have a lot less wire, but this is more wire than I'll need for hundreds of minis pins. So anyways, you cut a little bit. Don't worry if it's too long. Insert the copper into the hole in the mini, as you've seen. Now obviously that's too long. You try to put it in, the arm sticks out way far, but you can look at it and go, okay, well that's about how much I need to cut off. Take your clippers. Now you see there's only about 1/8 of an inch sticking out. Put it in the hole and it seats perfectly. So now all that's left is to glue. Now you can use super glue at this point if you want, but I don't like super glue at all because what I mentioned earlier, it just breaks very easy. So what I do for all my metal to metal and metal to plastic glue joints, I use 2-part epoxy. You don't have to buy it in this large a quantity. I mean, you can get it into smaller, like 5 mil tubes or something, a lot smaller. There's the resin and the hardener. They stay liquid until they're mixed. You mix it 1 part to 1 part. So what I do is I take a little bit on a piece of plastic or cardboard or paper, whatever, plastic so it doesn't soak through, and you put an equal amount of hardener. If you want it to dry faster, you can put a little extra hardener, not too much, like maybe 3 parts hardener, 2 parts, a 60-40 ratio. Then you take your toothpick or whatever device implement that you have, and you mix it up really good, making sure that all the hardener and resin have mixed together. Sometimes there'll be little bits. I mean, it'll be a uniform color, so you'll know. There's a little speck of orange in there. I guess there was a piece of hardener that was a little denser. I'm not going to worry too much about that. Take your little pin, get some hardener, or get the epoxy on the pin, and then put it into the mini, because you want there to be actual epoxy inside the hole. Make sure you clean off your tweezers very well after, because you don't want epoxy left on. Otherwise they'll, if they're ones like this that are closed automatically and you have to squeeze open, you'll be kind of lost. Next, put your epoxy on the outer bit. I've got a little more than needed. At this point I would also use this to glue to the base, which I'll do as well while I'm waiting. And I've got some epoxy on the end. I would also normally do it to the backpack, but I don't think I'm using the backpack that this chaplin came with. I'm going to modify it a bit, so I'll have to mix some of this epoxy up at a later time. But for the purpose of this video, this is what I'm going to do. So just put enough of this epoxy on the base of the mini, and set it on, and it's not, make sure it snaps in place. You got it set where you want. Maybe take the toothpick and spread out the excess so you don't have a big glob in the middle that you have to cut away later. and it'll also form a nice bit. Now you have about 5 minutes to work with this stuff before it gets too hard. So it's actually nice if you mix it up a minute or so beforehand, before you use it, and then allow it to just sit there for a bit, because then you don't have to hold the piece that you're gluing in place as long. I'll put a little bit on the inside of the arm as well. Don't need a lot because you don't want it to ooze out too much, because then you have to clean it up afterwards. Set the arm in hole, set it where you want it. Now at this point you're going to have to hold it for a minute. It's not like plastic glue where you can leave it for 5 minutes or leave it for 20 seconds. I'm going to have to hold this in place for probably 3 minutes for this epoxy to set. Not a huge deal. Got a radio around or a drink. But now you see the arm's in place. There's a little bit of resin that's oozed out, but not so much that I'll just paint over, or just take another clean toothpick and just work it off that aquila, so it isn't a detriment to the Mini. And there you go. It's been pinned, the arm's in place, and after I hold this for about 4 minutes, it'll be good enough to let go, and I'll have a Mini that is all done. Anyhow, cheers. Thanks for watching.